Today, what we want to do is present issues and factual information that gives you the knowledge and the boldness to step out with courage to confront people who are telling lies and creating this so-called disinformation, misinformation that is polarizing the country today. A perfect example, Philip, would be yesterday on the floor of the House of Representatives. And you saw what happened there, right?
Yeah. So basically, they tried to make us believe again that someone was bludgeoned to death with a fire extinguisher, and it never happened. But they want us to believe that it happened.
Yeah, and what our purpose is if you remain silent when somebody says something like, especially a member of the House of Representatives, if you remain silent, then people who watch that say, oh, it must be true.
Right.
And you need to be able to step up and go, wait a minute.
Yeah. And if they drown you with enough sound bites, then, repetition, eventually you're going to say, well, I guess that happened. Remember that happened. But it all started with a big fat lie.
Mm-hmm. It sure did. Your children, when they go to school, another example I would say is and it happened to me as well, when I was way back when I was in school. When your children go into a big classroom and the teacher is teaching something and they're either confused by it or maybe they don't agree with it or mostly they don't understand it.
Right.
You need to be, as a young person, you would encourage everybody to raise their hand and go, even though everybody else may have gotten it and you feel like embarrassed because you didn't, you go, well, I didn't understand. Could you repeat it again? And what I found was if one person would stand up, raise their hand, say, I don't understand, or I don't think that's true.
Right.
You leave the classroom at the end, and people are coming up to you. Other kids are saying, "I'm sure glad you raised your hand and said something because we agree with you, but we were too embarrassed or afraid or thought we were the only person that didn't understand."
That's right. Yeah, it's the church business meeting. It's all those settings, but now it's really stuff that matters because we're inundated every day with the liberal media telling us and propagating all these lies. And we need some folks who are willing to stand up and be fearless in the fire. And so that's the whole purpose for this show. And, as a pastor, I'm trying to raise up a new breed of believers who are willing to be fearless, who are willing to be courageous. The name of our church is Courageous Community Church. Started it in the middle of the pandemic. And so I'm trying to ignite these people to say, hey, we represent the truth, and the truth is worth defending.
And the biblical references, you can go down that road, and we will probably in future episodes. The difference between teaching and preaching truth and teaching and preaching acceptance.
Right.
But subverting the truths that exist for the sake of what? A larger congregation or...
Right. Not to offend and keep the butts in the seats.
Yeah, exactly. So, there are a lot of things that we could talk about.
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
And things where there's just so many... There's some truth, there are half-truths, and there are just bold-faced, outright lies. And we've got an election coming up. So we've decided that, maybe that's the top of the list. Now, that doesn't mean that we at some future point we might talk about some of these other things. I've listed a bunch of stuff. You can talk about vaccines. You can talk about the mandates. You can talk about the war in Russia, a southern border. Southern border is terrible. You know that it just as a factoid. I'm the factoid guy.
Right.
So far, 78 people on our U.S. government's terrorist watch list have been stopped at the southern border.
Dangerous.
Yeah.
Very dangerous. Yeah.
You hear Democrats saying, well, we need to vaccinate more people because 300 people a day are dying from COVID. But they don't tell you that 300 people are dying a day from drug overdoses.
Oh, yeah.
From the fentanyl coming over. So we could talk about that. The economy is a favorite one of mine, and maybe it may be a little dry, but at some point we should talk about that. The insistence that there's no inflation. Now, There's no
It
recession.
only raised up an inch. It only increased an inch.
Oh,
That's
God.
not bad.
So people suffer, and it's like, you're not really suffering. It's
Right.
all in your imagination.
I'm
So-
fine. What's your problem?
Oh my gosh, yes. The war on fossil fuels, the new one is that they're going to get rid of all the diesel trucks in California.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And so we're going to get everybody on an electric car. We just can't overload the grid.
Yeah. Don't charge your car. You buy a car, but don't charge it. And if there's a wildfire, and it's heading your way,
Right.
I guess you're supposed to run. I don't.
Bike out of there.
Oh gosh. And then and the other one, another favorite I think we'll both have is the assault on the Constitution.
Oh, certainly.
So
Certainly. Yeah.
But it's not going to be the case. Oh, abortion. That's another one, right? That's a favorite one, right?
That's a huge one that most of the churches ignored after it was overturned. And we can't be silent about these things. We have got to speak up. And so we're going to do it.
There are election issues.
They're major issues. I mean, yesterday, Stacey Abrams is caught in a bold-faced lie about abortion they fake the heartbeats in these exams. And they're saying that they feed it into, the exam somehow. I don't even know how do you come up with this stuff? But somebody needs to call her out on that lie.
Here's the quote. Look at this. Fetal heartbeats detected at 6 weeks are, quote, manufactured sound designed to help men control women's bodies.
Wow. Thank you for grabbing that. That's amazing. Yeah. That's like, wow. And so here we are. I mean, if somebody doesn't represent the truth and speak up and talk about these things, then you can expect this tyrannical takeover to just continue. And we are the ones who are saying something, right, Tom? We're going to do something.
We got to.
Those facts are important.
Yeah, we were going to start off, from a little bit different perspective, but Herc just coming out with that yesterday, it does bear a response, and so basically, just as far as the abortion issue goes, Europe, most of Europe, the majority of the countries in Europe ban all abortions after 15 weeks. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, they do. So, we have the Republicans and conservatives trying to create a limit at 15 weeks, rape, incest, life of the mother included in that. And what's the response? After Roe v. Wade was dropped down in Casey, decision, what happened? The Democrats said, we want full-term abortion the day the child's going to be born.
Right.
And in California, they're trying to get on the ballot a law that allows you to abort a child 28 days after the child is born.
Oh, that's flat out murder.
And then you get somebody saying there's no heartbeat at 6 weeks. Scientifically, that is not true. There is a heartbeat. And the idea that somebody would create it.
Right.
Anyhow.
Right.
So that was just like, you got to be kidding me. So what we really wanted to get to today, though,
Yes.
is, we're talking about the basic family unit, the structure of the family unit. And I think, by and large, you can offer a different opinion, that people want to live and let live. And they want, it's God, family, and country, right?
Yeah.
We got to make sure that's. And what we have is some massive interference by the political left to try to destroy the nuclear family, the construction of it.
Yes. It is really a big deal. And at this point, what they're trying to do is stand between us and our children. They want to do it through the school system. They want to allow, children to have life-altering operations without parental consent.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
How can that even be possible?
Another example is if you come to the school and we have a closet full of clothes and you want to try on a new gender today, you go in that closet and change into whatever gender you want to be and be that person all day long, and you go home and you don't tell mom and dad about it.
Yeah, that's just so hard to believe. And they use kind-sounding words and phrases.
Yes.
Again, this just came up yesterday about the degree to which these surgeries on children are being conducted to change their, quote, change their gender. But they actually, when they were publicly, I won't say shamed, but exposed, a lot of these medical universities immediately, overnight, went in and scrubbed all information about these transgender surgeries. But what they were calling them was gender affirming care.
Right.
You know what that really means? That means castration and double mastectomies for children.
Right. And right now, so we're getting testimonies of people who've gone through it and it's turned into a nightmare, and they're coming out and they're talking about these things. These young women slash, altered boys are trying to talk about it. And their stories are horrific, and the pain, and now they're, realizing that they can't have kids, and they're realizing that they've destroyed their bodies, and, the hormones and how it impacts the body is the consequences are lifelong.
Yeah.
And unalterable in some situations. There's no turning back.
Yeah,
you can't regrow these organs.
And I think the bone structure,
certainly,
the strength of bones and the long-term repercussions. And again, back to the moms.
Right.
Moms are the big voting bloc.
Yeah.
And moms are very protective. This is the mama bear protecting her cubs.
Yeah.
So what do you do as a young mother or mother-to-be, wannabe mother,
right,
when you have both boys and girls? I would be pulling my hair out to try to figure out, one, the danger to the boys, and the use and the way boys can now, in so many instances, use girls' lockers rooms, participate in girls' sports.
Right.
They can get professional prize money that normally girls would be getting. And then you've got the girls who want to participate and be on the track team or the volleyball team or the swim team. And they want to do well enough to get scholarships to go to college, and they're being won by boys, these events and the opportunities. It's like, what is a mother supposed to do?
Right. Well, I think that this is really the role of fathers. Fathers have got to be strong in their homes, as the mandate, the biblical mandate is that, fathers are supposed to be the leaders at home. And so we have to set that up so that fathers are taking their role, and then moms, protective, mama bear, you need to get between you and your school board. And you got to spend some time down there telling those folks what you believe and why you want to protect your children.
Can you imagine being put on a terrorist watch list because you want to protect your kids?
Right. Well, and it's happening right here in our own counties.
Tell me.
It's not, we see this happening all the time. We had a parade over 4th of July where they came through with a float promoting transgenderism and all these kinds of things, and come to find out it's an organization that is an alternative for moms protecting kids, that, hey, if you don't have a mom who will hug you, we'll be your mom, we'll be your surrogate mom. This is the kind of thing we got to stop.
Well, we're going to pursue that a little bit more going forward. We're going to take a brief break here, and we will get back with you soon, and then we hope you enjoy the show.
Today, we are continuing to talk about gender activism. And this is a term that some of you may not fully understand at this point, but it matters. It's really going to matter as we turn to this fall to start registering our votes. Because if this thing becomes legal, gender equity, if it becomes legal as some are trying to cram it down our throats, then guys like me, who as a pastor, which is one of the main reasons why I'm doing this, is that, I feel called to raise up a brave new believer who's willing to stand up and speak to these lies and represent their families and our community and change this thing. And so if we don't do something about it, then you can expect it to continue to overtake things like our school systems.
And specifically what we're talking about here, when you go to the polls, one of the things you have to consider is that the Democrats are very, very strongly pushing something called the Equality Act. Full endorsement of the President of the United States. What does the Equality Act do? It codifies a lot of this transgender activism and gender expression in the law. And it also is an arrow or a dagger pointed right at the heart of the family. Because as you said earlier, if you can separate children from their parents they send them off to school, good little, good little well-raised children, part of the family structure, and then you get a teacher to convince them that they don't need to communicate with their parents, that there's something different that they are, and that we'll keep that a secret between us, and if we can do some of that gender-affirming care, which is castration and double mastectomies, and
Right. Well, so Tom, with his background in military, is very passionate about this, what's happening in our community. And, I know he's being humble here, but this guy has a lot to say about these issues. And this is why we're doing this. Yeah. We have come together, we're uniting forces, right, to really take this stuff on, because this is no longer a threat. It is happening. It's happening right here in our local community.
Yeah, I got to thank Philip for getting me back on track here. Why does our voice matter? Why does our opinion matter? Well, first of all, we had a breadth of experience in our lives that young people in particular don't have. And my background is, I'll even take it a little bit farther back than I originally thought. I felt I needed to go to college. I had an early, strong pull for that, even starting high school. But my parents were not well off.
Right.
And I said, how am I going to do this without bankrupting my parents? That was my thought process. Well, it turned out my father was enlisted. And right before he retired, he Mustanged into the officer side of things, a Mustang lieutenant in the Navy. Well, that gave me the opportunity to try to apply for the U.S. Naval Academy on a presidential scholarship. Now, I could have gone through senators and representatives. There's a lot of schmoozing, and I'm just not that kind of person. I'm sorry, I'm just not. So what I did was I took a bunch of tests, and I filled out resumes and I sent them in, and they go, okay, you're going.
Yeah.
Well, that ended up being a 20-year career as a naval aviator and officer, a division officer and department head, and leading men. And I did that for 20 years. A lot of time off aircraft carriers. My wife and I did a tour overseas, and this was sacrifice and service for the country. As I said off camera, this is service to the country, not self-service for my enrichment. This was because I believe in the United States of America. I love the country. I stand and sing the Star-Spangled Banner. I say the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm just, that's where I come from. And so I did that for 20 years, and I retired. That was up in Virginia. And then I came down here and I got a job with a commercial airline. I was very fortunate in that regard. And I spent another 20 years. And that's kind of a command situation as well.
Sure.
And a lot of technical skill, knowledge involved.
Yeah.
You have to brief flight attendants. You have to deal with unruly passengers. There's all kinds of things within a different set of rules than the military has. But I had to be more diplomatic.
Right. Well, and so Tom is the real Top Gun. He's unlike the Tom that plays the movies. This is the real Tom and the real Top Gun. And listen, all of this experience, we're adding this together. I come from a ministry background. He comes from a military background. We come from, plugging ourselves into this community, and we believe that us with you can make a difference. And so what people ask me all the time is what can we do about this? So let's talk about that. What can we do about trans activism? What are our options, Tom?
Well, the first thing is to go to the ballot box
Right.
and vote. We've got to put a curb on our silence, which is basically encouraging this, I would call it immoral, bankrupt behavior.
Yeah.
And the thing that a lot of people don't realize in this live and let live kind of environment, I think that most, certainly conservative people, rely upon just to consume their daily lives with their children and their families and stuff like that, is that this is a slippery slope.
It really is. And I would say that as far as the church goes, the church is in a lukewarm coma. And what we've got to do is we got to wake up, church. This is time for the awakening. And so that means you got to get involved in your kids' lives. You got to get down to the school board. You got to look at the curriculums that they're passing and the policies that they're passing. Is transgender activism allowed at your kid's school? And don't think for a second that just because they throw the word Christian on the title of the school that it's not happening there too. You need to go find out. You need to go find out even if your homeschool co-op is promoting stuff and there's somebody that's infiltrated the co-op. And so this is no longer the responsibility of someone else. You have got to do your job as a parent. Get involved, get out there and if necessary, protest at the school board. Be willing to become a target and a voice that says, hey, we're not having this here.
The family unit is not going away.
That's right. And, even if you have to upset Thanksgiving dinner and, Aunt Mary, who thinks this is all okay, you need to speak up. You need to be ready with your scriptures and you need to understand, hey, this is not okay. When they exchange the truth for the lie and they serve the the created man instead of the creator. So basically you flipped it. That's why we've got all this stuff, is that we're looking to people. That's not the answer. The answer is we've got to go with God's created order. He set us up that way.
Did you see a little bit of what I was brought up in the church with was you love the sinner, but you hate the sin.
That's right.
But what seems to be happening so much is love the sinner and the sin will
tolerate the sin.
There you go.
Yeah.
Tolerate.
Yeah, that's progressive Christianity. So what we've done is we made this whole wing of relevance that doesn't even show up in the scriptures. And some pastors will say, well, Jesus never confronted homosexuality because they knew that it was something that you could get stoned for. That's a non-issue. You don't have to confront something when it's not happening, right?
Yeah.
It's not even there.
Yeah, I don't understand how they, how that happens. I don't know.
That'll leave you hanging there for a second. So as we move forward to the fall and we are getting ready to go to the voting ballot polls and cast our votes, what should people be looking for?
Well, I think the moral foundation to the agendas that you see that the parties are putting forward.
Yeah.
And again, we're back to the theme of the show mostly is this idea of transgender activism. And if you're a parent, once again, and I'm thinking mostly young parents, I think, maybe we can open the eyes of young adult children who are going to have them. But you have to understand that this transgender activism is a phenomenon.
Right.
This is a new thing. This is not like been going on for centuries and centuries. Yeah. This is, if you go back just 10 years, it's like nobody ever heard of this stuff.
Right.
Now, in the space of I saw some numbers. It said in 2012 there were 3,000 transgender surgeries. In 2016 there were 16,000.
Wow.
Transgender surgeries. And you go, how does that happen? Well, one, is there's a study out of England that they looked at. You know, in school, kids have groups. They have cliques.
Right.
You know, there was, in fact, maybe on another show we'll go back through a little bit of history, but cliques of group, they by definition exclude some people,
Right.
and they're all inclusive and all in what they are and what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And what they found out in Great Britain was that if one girl in the little group in school comes out as being trans, she gets convinced, they all do.
Right.
They follow immediately thereafter, and so
Peer pressure.
and being cool.
Right. Fitting in. Yeah, got to fit in somehow, right?
Yeah. So if I'm a transgender a girl who's double mastectomy to a boy, you look on, they have TikTok videos in this. They're proudly displaying this massive scar from one side to the other, where these young girls, teenagers, have had double mastectomies, and they're proud of it. And it's overwhelmingly girls who are getting these surgeries.
Yeah, at $40,000 a pop. So we know on the hospital and provider side, they're making a killing off of these surgeries.
Yeah, it's not altruistic.
No,
It's like vaccines. You know, how many people got obscenely wealthy when the government spent $1 or $2 or $3 or $5 billion buying vaccines from companies of untested products for which you don't know the outcome, the long-term side effects. This is the same thing. Transgender kids have, it's not like getting a piercing.
No, right.
Or a tattoo.
Yeah, right.
I hesitate to say this, but the old tramp stamp idea.
Right. Well, we've moved a long way ahead of the butterfly on the bicep or whatever. I mean, it's nuts what we're coming up with.
That was cool, and nobody had one.
Right.
Then everybody had one.
Right.
And so, what's new? What can we do to be cool?
Yeah.
And guess what? This is what we have now.
Yeah. Well, it's really sad, but I believe that we can make a big difference if we will get involved. And, this is the big warning in Scripture. He says in the book of Revelation to the church at Laodicea, you are lukewarm. I would that you were rather hot or cold. Mm-hmm. But here's what we have to see is that lukewarmness is basically, I don't care. I'm okay, And so that might be happening to your kid, but it really doesn't bother me because it's not happening to my kid. We can't take that attitude anymore. Go along to get along, or until, the bomb lands at my front door, I'm not doing anything about it. Mm-hmm. We've got to get out not only and vote, but we also have got to get involved in our churches, and we have got to do something about it.
Yep.
So
there's a lot more to talk about with this, isn't there?
Yes.
And we're going to get to it in the next episode. So thanks for tuning in, and we will see you again.